Okay, good day to everyone. And thank you very much for your kind invitation for me to speak as one of your guest speakers on this very important occasion, which is the 13th International Cultural Conference organized by the Pacific Academy of Higher Education and Research University at Udaipur. So we're very happy that we could all join you, and we congratulate all the organizers of this important event. I would like to, of course, congratulate and greet our group president, planning and control of the Pacific Group, Professor BP Shawarma. Greetings from all of us here who have joined us on this very important occasion. Likewise, of course, our President of Pacific University, Professor KK Dave. Warm greetings as well, together with many of our eminent guests who have all gathered with us today. We, of course, would like to congratulate, among others, Professor D.S. Chauhan, uh, Professor Kotahari, who is also here with us, Dr. Raman, and, of course, our conference director, Professor Mahima Birla, for all the work and all the things that you have done to put this together. Of course, our good friend, Mr. Pravesh Badvia, MD of the Education Value Chain Solution at India, for facilitating too this important linkage between LPU Laguna and Pacific University. So on this very happy occasion, I would like to greet everyone. A big congratulations on this 13th International Conference. On my next slide, I was given about 10, 15 minutes, so I won't take very long, but I'd like to move to our next slide just to go through a few salient features of our proposal, our conference this afternoon. Next slide, please. Okay, things that we already know, but let me state the obvious, the definition of the new normal. As we all know, things are either called the new normal or, to many of us, the better normal, a coin phrase made by McKinsey to demonstrate the importance of the effects of COVID, and more importantly, as we move to a post-COVID-19 scenario. So whether you call it the new normal or the better normal, this is an optimistic expression of the many possibilities that have become because of key changes in the environment. On the next slide, I'd just like to share with you things that you already know from John Cutler, but I think these are very important to mention for many of us in our universities who are in a period of tremendous change, tremendous opportunities also. And these are just the 8 steps that many of you are familiar with, but I think it's important for this international conference to emphasize the significant importance of making sure these steps are done consciously and to be aware where we are in these various steps. As you can freeze from the slide, we have 8 steps, 8 fundamentally important areas. The first one, of course, is to create urgency. And I think our whole environment, whether it be the COVID or unrest in certain parts of the world, together with key changes from our customer base, our student base, the importance of forming, number 2, a powerful coalition, an internal coalition between students, faculty, and staff, together with our stakeholders, and of course, the external market, whether it be government regulations or the entire stakeholders market beyond our universities. The third would be something that we always try to do, but of fundamental importance, even more so now, which is to create an important, compelling vision for change. And I think the word here is change, but it has to be absolutely compelling. And this is so important. The fourth, of course, would be able to communicate that vision through a variety of media, but it is important that our stakeholders know, the broader stakeholders externally and internally, that we have to make sure we communicate the vision and communicate it strongly. The fifth is things that we're already trying to do, but I feel many of us should do more, is empowering action. As you know, all of these plans are just plans and remain as plans unless we can execute them. And so the ability to execute will depend on being able to empower clear and efficient and concise action that we can assess. Sixth, I think number six is very something that we do for many of us, but all the more reason we have to do now during a period of great change. And it is a reminder for all of us to create quick change. And these celebrations of creating quick change must be celebrated in each and every little mile or kilometer as we go along. We don't need for the very big change to celebrate, but it's celebrating indeed the small changes. The seventh, of course, will be building on the change. The last 2 years have been incredible change, and yet there is tremendous change in the future for many of the leading schools and universities to be able to innovate, to be able to build on the changes that we have done, and above all, to make it stick. And this is where the area of sustainability comes in. A reminder by John Cotter that these are the things that we have to do. Many of us already doing it, but we have to be cognizant where we are in this 8-step process and how do we assess each step along the way and build on each step. The next slide that I'd like to share with you very briefly are some of the things that many of us have been trying to do already. But I think for leaders and educational leaders, learning leaders, chief academic officers, chief innovation officers, chief technological officers, these are a reminder of the 5 key areas that we need to do to make sure that we not only survive in the future, but actually thrive. The first is the obvious one, is to recover revenues. Obviously, revenues have gone down a bit, but in certain courses, they have gone up because there are unique opportunities. The second one is to rebuild operations, not as we did before, but rebuilding them simpler, easier, something more effective, and something that enhances the student experiences. And this is so important that student experiences have become a fundamental matrix that many of us are looking at to assess, analyze, and to further improve our net scores. Obviously, the third, as we look at our organization, the need to rethink organization, to upskill, reskill, and to look at seeing how we can have an even flatter organization so that many of us become more agile, more innovative, and really lean, very lean to be able to react much faster than we used to. The fourth and fifth are related, and many of us have been able to do that and are still doing that, is accelerating the adoption of the digital solution, together with organizations that will need to reinvent their digital strategy. There has been, following many of the tech companies, there has been a resurgence of positions in many schools and universities, calling them chief digital officers, chief technological officers, chief innovation officers. So there are many new areas that we are forced to look for. And then I feel that, as we all know, no university or school can truly be successful without having a very strong digital roadmap for the next 2 to 3 years and beyond. And I think it's important to take stock of it, to reinvent it, and to look at the technological companies to see how they're doing it, because that is often the path for many of the schools and universities moving forward. On our next slide, let me just tell you some of the overviews, the framework for our sustainable future. Many of you know many of these already, but allow me to bring in what we should be bringing in. Many schools have gone into what they call the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. This was fostered by the United Nations, by the UNDP, by UNESCO, and these are some of the broad objectives, broad goals that many schools and universities and other enterprises have been able to do. We suggest that many of the schools take a second look or even a third look to see how can they better align some of these sustainable development goals, whatever you may choose among them. They're available for review in the internet. I won't go through it in the because of the limits of time, but there are certain big opportunities and challenges that we would like to see. Bringing in together, of course, technology, digital literacy, so that we can better align our vision, mission with the fundamental SDG goals that have been so eloquently enunciated for us over the past few years. So here is a reminder for many of us to review the SDG goals and to see how we can better align our own goals with those goals. Okay, on the succeeding slide, very interesting. I'd like to move into another area for purposes of this conference as a reminder that many of the surveys that have been uncovered show five broad areas that I feel are very important, what employers would really want for many of our graduates. So it's not only the student experience, but actually some of the skills, both hard and soft skills, that many of our employers in whatever industry all over the world are looking for. Of course, obviously, there is the importance of communication, the ability to speak, to articulate, to be eloquent and be able to talk, both written and oral, and I think that's fundamental importance. The second C, of course, is collaboration. Many of the companies we know are no longer looking for that brilliant one-man team, your summa cum laude, your very brilliant genius who operates alone. Rather, they're looking for graduates and people who can actually collaborate and work with different teams across the organization. Hence the importance of being able to teach and foster collaboration. The third is obvious, cultural adaptation, the ability to work with cross cultures along different time zones with different people and different backgrounds. So the importance of this third C is also key again, and it has been brought up time and time again by many of the employer surveys that we have seen. Obviously, the fourth and fifth C would be the critical thinking and the ability to solve problems. And I think many of us are trying to do this among our graduates. And of course, fundamentally, is creativity and innovation. Time and time again, uh, many of the employers are not just looking at a mere degree, an academic degree, but rather the skills that are embedded in these five C's that are of fundamental importance, that we really have to create those student outcomes that our students can very clearly amplify and demonstrate that they have what employers want. On the next slide, some of you have already seen this, and I'd like to show this again. It's a reminder for many of us that many of the top tech companies all over the world, and I just have here Google, IBM, Apple, Price Waterhouse, among several, have already begun to drop college degrees as a requirement for new hirees. I think this is slowly evident in the States and it's slowly spreading elsewhere. I think this is an important wake-up call for us that getting a degree, having a good student experience are really not enough because the world of work are requiring certain skills. Some of those are embedded in the five C's I mentioned. And these are things that we all have to be aware of. Why are they dropping college degrees and what schools indeed what skills they are indeed looking for. On the next slide, uh, Google, as many of you may know, has already a plan to disrupt the college degree. They have come out with a 6-month course, which will be a fraction of our college education, where they will push all of the skills they feel that many of our employers all over the world are looking for. So these are areas that many of us that run universities, our deans or teachers, must look into what these many of these tech companies are doing. What skills are they teaching that they will embed in a 6-month program where they say you don't need to go to college to get a university degree, but you have to learn these skills, and you can learn many of these skills online. So this is a requirement and a call for us again to review what are indeed the student outcomes that we would like to teach to make sure that the world of work has indeed uh, sees clear advantages in many of our college graduates. We have other examples in the next slide. Again, well, this is another company. Ernst& Young has removed degree classification from entry criteria. In fact, they have this saying, which is quoted here, because there is no evidence university equals success. So a very powerful statement. And so the onus and the impetus for many of us in the school system is to be able to prove otherwise, that a university education does in fact imbibe some of these skills that they are looking for. Many of them are articulated in the 5 C's that we mentioned, and they have to amply demonstrate that in the case of the Google certification, universities can actually teach many of those areas that they're looking for and be able to give more by providing more value added advantages. Okay, on the next slide, I'm coming to an end, and given the limits of time, but I do want to emphasize the importance of something that will ensure that many of our universities continue to be relevant. And many of you, this is not new, many of you are already doing it, but I'd like to focus on the importance here of micro-credentialing and micro-badging. Most employers expect that many of their new staff will continue to learn and be lifelong learners. And here we have seen the importance that many of our schools and university must embed in their curriculum micro credentialing, whether it be from IBM or any of these Microsoft, Google, etc. Any of those areas or the disciples where these disciplines rather where those skills might matter. And I think this is a very important point where they can really amplify their resumes, where they can really upskill what they bring to the world of work. So not only will they bring a diploma, but they will bring certain micro credentials, badging that highlights the skills that they have learned and that they are able to do. That will enhance the value of the university education, enhance the fundamental importance of doing that. I cannot overemphasize this. I think some of us are doing it little by little, but I think in the next years, there will be a tremendous influx for micro badging and micro credentialing. Uh, Lastly, as employers and employees are both looking into this, in a recent survey, there was as high as 95% of employers were looking for micro credentials of potential hires. It's possible that over today and in the next few years, you will see that sometimes some of these micro badging and micro credentialing will be perceived as even more important the university degree that they can get. Not unless, of course, you embed all those micro credentialing and micro badging in all the courses we offer. So I think that's the very brief time that I have left given. I prepared a lot more slides, but in the interest of time, I would like to greet all of you, the organizers of this event, and to thank you for inviting me. I'm very honored to be part of this important group. And I like to thank our friends in Pacific University for the close ties that bind us together. We hope to see you soon. I happen to be the president of the AUAP, which is the Association of Universities in the Asia Pacific region. So, on behalf of AUAP, I would like to greet all of you a very warm New Year 2022. We hope the COVID is behind us. There's a lot of work, exciting work, and a lot of opportunities for us in university education. And we look forward to collaborating with you in the many, many months and years ahead. Congratulations, and thank you very much. Bye bye.